Over the last week or so, there has been an interesting development in the world of movies and movie theaters. And it all stems from the most unusual of sources. DreamWorks Trolls World Tour. For those that have not been keeping up, I'm going to give a very quick summary here. What happened is, because of the Red Death, thank you, YouTube, movie theaters have been unable to bring their finished movies to theaters. They're all closed. So they've been sitting on these things, basically just chucking money down a well. So Universal decided, fuck that noise, and they released Trolls World Tour on a video-on-demand style rental digital distribution system. The way that it works is you pay $20 and you rent it for 48 hours, which as a single individual is obscenely more than a movie ticket. As a family, it is so fucking much cheaper. They did this because they did not want the massive hemorrhage of funds, especially when everything else gets released all at once when the lockdowns stop. They knew that they couldn't fit Trolls World Tour into anywhere because there wasn't much of a demand for it to begin with. It is effectively a vehicle for merchandise. So they put it on video on demand, and they hoped that it would generate some level of money. Turns out it generated all the money. It was the most rented movie on video on demand. Not just in the $20 category, in all categories. And in a 3-week period, it generated $100 million, which is obscene for that kind of service. So Universal, from that point, said, hey, this actually works. It works so fucking well with a movie that we thought was never going to work. We are going to now bring all of our movies to video on demand the same time as we do with theater releases. To which AMC went, no, you can't do that. We want the money first. They're throwing a hissy fit. And this kept going back and forth for 3 days or so before Universal finally gave an ultimatum. Before AMC finally gave an ultimatum. AMC said that if Universal releases any movie on video on demand at the same time that it's releasing for theater, or any point before the typical 90-day theater release window, they will not show that movie. And Universal, as of this point, has not backed down from their new plan of releasing movies in theater and on video on demand at the same time. So effectively, they are blacklisting all of Universal. And then Regal Theaters decided to jump in on that, I guess, just because they were like, me too, me too! This, I think, is going to be a catastrophic move for AMC and Regal. I don't see how this works in any way for them. First off, one of the reasons that Universal is jumping on this is because they made so much more money percentage-wise than from the theaters. In theaters, when a movie's released in theaters, 50% goes to the theater, 50% to the movie studio, usually. Sometimes 60-40, but generally it's an even split. Which explains the Vudu accounting that occurs with movies. Say you have a movie with a budget of $100 million. That $100 million movie, usually also has a $100 million marketing budget. So your budget is effectively $200 million. Then the movie theaters take 50% of the ticket sales for that movie. So in order to get that $200 million, that movie needs to domestically, I'm just going to look at domestic for a second here, make $400 million. So a $100 million movie taking 4 times its budget to break even. That's why that happens all the time. That's why that happens with such regularity. You see 3 times or 4 times. There it is. There's your breakdown. Now, if it's just an 80-20 split, that $400 million to break even, including the marketing budget, suddenly drops down to $250 million. A typical $100 million movie production, which is quickly becoming the norm, would save $150 million that it needed just to break even from that one distribution split difference. There is a reason Universal is looking into this with a lot of seriousness. And then I believe it would also be easier to distribute the movies internationally because these fucking companies that have these VODs are already international companies. Whereas in movies, to distribute to movie theaters internationally takes a whole lot of legwork, a whole lot of extra cost. That's why even for as much as movies are trying to pander to China to get that money, it's still at a lower overall percentile than America's. It's just that in China, they hope that they will get a lot more overall to effectively even the scale. Whereas with digital, like I said, I do not believe that there would be that issue. I could be wrong on that. But I'm pretty sure there is no international middleman they have to work through or international costs they have to add to the total. I believe it will just be the same thing and the same deal, which would save a lot of money. So just from a financial perspective, this is completely stupid for the movie theaters to try and strong-arm their way with this. But also, this is a thing that people have been saying for a very, very long time, that the movie theaters, in particular, need to modernize. And while they have made the seats more comfortable or they've added some nice new bric-a-brackery or whatever, they really haven't because they kind of can't. They're effectively stuck in the format that they show the movies in, which is what's causing a lot of the issue for them. It's probably that, and they haven't really found a reason to, because while movie releases to Blu-ray, DVD, whatever, have been coming quicker, it's been a slow quicker. It's been like a week or 2 quicker, or some movies will just get faster releases if they did absolutely shit in the movie theaters and the movie theaters just dump them. You rarely see the mega big blockbusters released to Blu-ray, DVD, video on demand as early. So they've been relatively secure. They can just keep putting in the movies that make a lot of money and they'll make their money. Now, with a movie studio saying that they are going to do both at the same time, they are scared to fucking death because a lot of people, especially those with families, don't want to go to the theater. I am something of an oddity. I personally like seeing the big production movies on this huge, giant screen at least once. I am not the norm, and movie theaters have to realize that I am not the norm. I am an oddity. The families are going to never want to go out again. if they can save this much money. Especially due to the Red Death being everywhere. Again, hi YouTube. I think that movie theaters are going to be some of the last businesses to reopen. If I had to take an educated guess, I'd say somewhere between late June and mid-July. And then they are going to either be under regulation that they have to stay at the 50% capacity thing that they were doing of their own volition before they got shut down, or it's going to be heavily suggested that they do that. I'd say that's probably going to be in effect for about a year, and then you have to take into additional effect that I believe that once the quarantines and lockdowns are fully lifted, we're going to see something like 25% of people just are not wanting to go to entertainment stuff for the next 6 months or so. So you add all that together, and you are going to see a massive decrease in theater revenue to begin with. So they are with Universal, they are effectively cutting off their nose to spite their face. Now, I know why they're doing it. They're trying to send an ultimatum to all the other movie studios. Don't you dare do this, or we will stop showing your shit so your competition can make a lot more money. The problem is that video-on-demand services and streaming services have now hit the point of being so widely received by the populace that the movie theaters kind of don't have that weight that they used to anymore. I'm reminded of back in ye olde days when the theaters fought against VHS because they thought that that would destroy their business of movie studios doing re-releases, and effectively it did. But what they didn't realize is that all the new movies would be coming in so much faster, and they would get so much money, so much more money from that. So it worked out for them, but their fear of losing a business model was correct. In sort of a different entertainment medium aspect, this is very much how TV studios absolutely hate YouTube and fear YouTube, because in many ways YouTube represents a business model that TV cannot ever achieve. It is a very quick turnaround. It's effectively live in most cases. It is a small budget. It is user-made rather than these bigger budget productions that take several months or a couple of years to do. And once they get something made, it's just made. They can't go back and revise it until much later, whereas YouTubers, if they see that people aren't liking what they're doing, they can switch that on a dime. Which is actually why I believe that the TV studios paid Google to hire what is effectively a TV executive in Susan Wojcicki. I do believe that that's why YouTube is very quickly turning into TV, because I think that the TV studios effectively tried to buy their competition away, but that's another story. My point is, this is every time that a big change happens to either the entertainment medium or the way in which that medium is consumed, there is a big resistance from either the older medium or the older way of consuming it, because they either can't adapt or they won't. It's dependent on situations. Sometimes they can and just have no desire to because it's too costly, or sometimes they just lack any and all ability to, so they fight it to the death. I think that this is actually a bit of both. But it will be very interesting to see how many other studios jump on this, because now that Universal has released the financials of how well they did from a movie that no one thought was going to make money and no one wanted to see, is when they release their bigger movies, their very popular chain movies like your Fast and Furious. If they release that on VOD and the theaters boycott that, it will be interesting to see how much that makes. Because if that makes all the money again, I can guarantee movie studios will just jump ship. They will say, fuck you, theaters. We will release it on VOD. And that is going to destroy cinemas. AMC is already about to go bankrupt. They can't afford to do this kind of shit. I'm pretty sure this is just them playing chicken. They don't seem to realize they have nothing to play chicken with. My guess is by the beginning of next year, we're going to see where exactly this headed. My assumption is that we're going to be seeing the release of simultaneous, and that's going to be the new typical for movie releases. We're going to see simultaneous theater and VOD releases, which would be great because it gives people like me an option. I can choose. Yeah, I'll go out and see that. I want to see that on the big screen. Or, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. If I want to see it, I'll just pay a little bit extra so that I can just watch it at the comfort of my home. And I think that would be their greatest strength, or at least the studio's greatest strength. If it comes down to it, there are a lot of movies that people will want to watch day one, and they will be happy to pay the extra fee on VODs, and the theaters are going to miss so much money. I could be dead wrong. Hell, I could be wrong in that it could happen sooner than I think. But my gut assumption is that by the beginning of next year, we're going to see the full effect of this. And that's when everything is going to be changing in the movie landscape. It's going to be interesting to watch as this progresses. I'm really going to, from just a financial and passerby perspective, be curious how well this works. It's one of my little weird quirks. I like seeing how shakeups affect the old landscape and the new landscape. I'm weird like that. Anyway, this has been Math Machine saying, of all the things that are going to be in the history books for the biggest changes and effects to the world of cinema, I would never have thought Trolls World Tour would have been the thing that causes such a big shakeup. 2020 is a very interesting year. Peace out.